great to meet you. Thank you so much for taking a minute out for the program. I appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm excited to be here.
Me too. So let's begin our journey with this. 6 years ago, this pandemic was changing everything about our worlds. How did you get through that coronavirus era, and how has it influenced the way that you live and work in 2026?
It's a really fun question because the day before everything shut down where we were was my birthday.
Oh, wow.
And so a bunch of coworkers came together. We had a very impromptu happy hour right before. And I feel looking back that was probably the best way to wrap up because it was, and when I say wrap up, I mean like wrap up this old version that we could never go back to, right? But it was really student community and connection, and it was very, as a rule follower myself and a planner, it was very spontaneous, and it just felt like a really good way to kind of end that era.
Yeah.
But to your question, I had small children at the time, and daycare, and my husband's job was on the line. We weren't sure, was he going to be able to go back to work? Was he going to be furloughed? We just, there were a lot of unknowns and certainly a lot of fears, just like the day to day going to the grocery store and then taking a shower because you just don't know. Um, and when I look back, certainly it was a beautiful time for our family, because we had so much quality time. And
Yeah.
my husband was daddy daycare for in a number of months. So there were some things that happened in our house, like a zip line was created in the backyard. Some things that happened while I was working on my computer, and then I'd come back and discover. So I mean, it was a perfect example of how you can live in two worlds and both be true. We were terrified. We were uncertain. We didn't know if we were going to have a paycheck. And we had some beautiful quality time.
Yeah.
And we look back on those days, and it was really special.
So we went to, on March 14th, my wife and I went to a Irish wedding. And
Oh,
at that time, if the 13th, everything shut down, which was Friday the 13th. But I remember that day after, we were all still like, okay. It was kind of like the night of The Walking Dead. Like, we're all like looking at each other like, what's going on? Did the rapture happen? But I remember I still talk about that wedding because it was such a big moment of that was it. That was the last party. That was the last kind of everything because of the reception and everything. And the bride and groom ended up going to Ireland, and they ended up doing the trip, but everything was
wow.
closed. It was all locked down. It was a weird time. And I think when my brain goes back to that time, no, I mean, it was around spring break for the kids. So you're thinking, oh, it's going to be maybe spring break, maybe a couple more weeks. Little did we know how long it was going to last. I think at one point there was an umpire that walked off the field at a spring training game. And I remember he looked back at everybody and said, "We'll see you guys in 2 years." And it sent a shiver up my spine. And that was like
Mm,
on the 14th. I was like, how does he know that? And there's no
yeah.
way. We can't be closed down for that long. We got to live our
Yeah.
lives. But anyway,
Yeah.
it was very strange. So let's get to the essence of what you do on a daily basis. On paper, it's clear. But if I was to put you in front of a bunch of 12-year-olds at career day in a school, and one of the kids in the back of the room is like, "What do you do for a living?" What's your answer?
uh, I have a funny story about this, and the short answer is, I help leaders achieve everything they want to achieve. And my funny story is that when my kids were younger, they have career day, and my husband's job is much more exciting, so he's usually the default. And this particular year, I was like, no, 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 I'm doing this. This is I got something to say. And so, one of the things I have the privilege of doing is working with leadership teams and getting them out of their comfort zone. I work with a lot of really, really smart, technical, sciencey math, strategic engineering, right? And I encourage them to play a little bit, and we do hard work through that play. So I thought I'm going to take this to my team, and or to the kids. And so we did, this kind of very typical marshmallow challenge with the kids. And it was so much fun because every time I give this this, I haven't done this particular activity a lot. It takes a special group to do it with, but they say the kids always did it better than the adults because they got out of their own head, right? So I was like, I'm determined to try this out, and so we did it. I did it with the kids in preschool, and I mean, it was so fun
Yeah.
to watch these structures that they were creating with toothpicks and marshmallows. And they were right. Like the kids just got it better. They supported each other. They were
Uh-huh.
asking questions. Um, so anyway, it was just it's a fun question.
Yeah. Well, there one of my favorite poets said at one point, we're born geniuses and buried idiots. Like
Yeah.
when you're a kid, you don't have any fences around you. You don't have any of these restrictions, and it's just like it's like an animal. There's this unrestricted way that they think. So that's when the genius really flourishes because there's nothing, no posturing. They're just doing what they're doing. Um, so when you were 12 years old and you were at career day in school and thinking about your life, what was your dream job? What did you want to be when you grew up?
I don't know that I remember.
Okay.
Uh, I think the first time it came clear to me what I thought I might want to do was in college, and I started to pull together all of the different elements of things that I liked, and I knew that I wanted to help others. I knew I wanted to serve others, and I grew up in a house where my mom and my stepdad were avid business people. They were up early, they worked late, they had kind of what felt like cool jobs when I was a kid. And so there was always this part of me that loved the business side. So at some point in college, I was like, yep, I'm going to go get my social work degree. And I'm probably going to run a nonprofit because I love helping people and I love the business side.
So I grew up in the 80s, and my idea of leadership at that time obviously probably came from the president, whether it was conscious or subconscious, and void of political affiliation. I just remember when things would happen, Reagan would be on TV and he would talk, and it was that was the voice, that was the leader. In your life, who was that voice of a leader that's influenced the way that you try to talk to people about leadership and his kind of influence the way that you go about it?
I mean, the honest answer is my mom.
Yeah.
So she's a executive coach, and she had many years of certifications and training. And I remember bringing a boyfriend home at one point, and she had us do Myers Briggs with him and BTI. So it's been ingrained. The self awareness aspect and the curiosity and maybe challenging, and also being very driven. I think I got a lot of that from watching her.
So was she your hero? Was she your inspirational force that's allowed you to become who you are?
When I look back, yeah, I think she's probably been a big driver. Even, I don't know, 5 years ago, 6 years ago. I mean, when we were still, commuting to work, right? She was my commute coaching. I would call her on the way in and check in, and oh, by the way, this hard thing is happening at work, and she would give me some tools or talk me off the ledge. And just like any good mother-daughter relationship, there's always the tension and the butting heads, which I think has also been useful and learning how to do that in a productive, healthy way. But yeah, I think at the core of it, she, for better or worse, she's been the driver, the voice in the back of my head as I grew in my leadership career, and then now help others.
So when you look at the annals of business and all of the leaders that have existed in our timeline, who has been inspirational to you, or who would be somebody, whether they're a ghost or they're still alive, that you would love to have talked to get a better insight that might help you on your journey?
Recently I was listening to a podcast and learning more about Nelson Mandela, and I keep going back to this what I understand now as this ability to bring differing voices together and bringing people who disagree together. And I would just love to be a fly on the wall, kind of watching him over the years. And there was quite an evolution, and so yeah, he's the first one that comes to mind.
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine? I mean, 27 years he was behind bars. And when he came out, everything that he went into jail for came to fruition. He came
Mm.
out and everything that would be magnanimous. Um,
Yeah, so it's interesting you say the jail part because there is a part of me that's like I would love to just sit in jail with him and just to see like
yeah,
what was his mindset, what got him through that. There's a huge there's a lot to learn from the dark days, not
yeah.
just the days he was, you know, uh, doing things that we know of today. Yeah.
Another transformational figure along those lines is Gandhi. And I was speaking with somebody that was from India, and I was asking him about, you know, I would think his picture would be all over the place. He would be one of those kind of patron saints of their country. But everybody's really torn. There's half that believe that he started a war, there's half that
Mm.
believe that he did it. And I wonder sometimes with Mandela, I think he's in a different light. I think he is still, I don't know that there's another half. I think he's probably the hero of that country and will continue to be no matter what happens from here on out, you
That'd
know?
be really interesting to go ask those questions. Yeah, I'd be
Yeah.
really curious.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. What is, how do you view work-life balance? There's a lot of CEOs, there's a lot of business minds that dismiss it. Doesn't exist. But then there's others that find that it works. How does that work philosophically for you? How do you view that?
Yeah, there's an undertone of when we talk about work-life balance, there hear talk people talk about there's a one or the other, and I've not really subscribed to that because we don't just show up at work and then we show up at home. We can't just separate. Um, I know some people can be better at compartmentalizing, so but in general, I follow a philosophy of work-life integration, and I follow a model of really understanding what your purpose is, and no matter where you are at work or at home, that you can live that purpose. And so, not to say it all mushes together, but we when I talk to leaders about it, typically people that are drawn to me are those that are burnt out, they're exhausted, they're overwhelmed, they're navigating a lot of responsibility, and they are trying to use the tactics that they use that got them where they are in that position, and they just don't work anymore. And so, a lot of what I do is help these leaders kind of revamp their systems and their structures and the mindsets that go behind that.
So, what is one of your favorite client success stories? One that maybe you went into it and it was difficult, but you went through it, you weathered through it. Do you have a client success story like that that rises to the top?
I mean, one of the favorite things that I do, like when I get to the end of my day, if I've had that connection with a client, like and walking arm in arm with them through their transformation, there that is just completely fulfilling. So it's hard to pick just one. Recently, I met with a client. We just did a very short engagement. She had some real challenges that she was navigating, and so in 3 sessions, we really kind of dove into some different nuances that were specifically tailored for her situation. And by the end of it, she was one of the things she was leading up to was this meeting with her boss. And I don't know. I have realistic expectations. I'm a pretty optimistic person, but what could you really do in 3 sessions? And and she sent me this note after about the transformation that had happened with her and preparing for that meeting. And it's not just about the meeting, it's not just about that relationship with the boss, it's all the things that were tied into it, which was how can I be a mom, a successful mom with a newborn at home, and successful in my practice. And by the way, what does success look like for me, right? And getting her to really think about, uh, instead of just kind of what's been handed, what she thinks she was supposed to do, starting to break some of those norms and then end up having this transformative conversation with her boss. I mean, this is one example. It's a recent one, but it sticks out because she was in an industry that I haven't had a lot of experience in. But what it taught me was that it doesn't really matter whether you're a supervisor at a manufacturing plant or an orthodontist or an executive. It's the problems, the challenges, the leadership underpinnings are consistent. And anyways, it was very rewarding to be able to see such a impactful transformation.
So when the alarm clock goes off in the morning, what is that energy for you to do a good job, to make a difference in your clients' lives, take care of your own soul? What is that collective energy for you every day to do it at a high level?
Well, keep in mind, I have two young kids at home. So the energy first thing is is being like, what can I do to be present for
Yeah.
them? I know that's not the intent of your question, but the
No, that's
honest answer is
definitely, yeah, that's huge. Yeah.
yeah. One of the things, one of the transformations that I made in my own life was getting to a place where, I had done all the things that I thought I was supposed to do. Big rule follower here. Um, I was successful. I got to a nice kind of level in my career and title, but there was just this thing that was missing, and I had no time mentally for my family. And and that was, I just didn't want to look back and regret that. And so the kind of environment that I've created for myself now creates space so that when I do wake up, I won't say never. I very rarely set my alarm. I get up when my body says it's time. I spend time with the kids, and I do the boring stuff like the dishes and that sort of thing. But you know, it's getting the day started that way took a lot of effort and intentionality to get to that. And they're young, right? They're 7 and 9 right now. So I feel like I'm in this like precious zone. We don't have much more time before teenage hormones start to rage through the house. But it's so if I can do that for myself and for my family, then I'm in a position to be able to serve my clients better and be able to help them navigate, whatever challenges that they're experiencing.
So when that big flashing word retirement comes into your brain, what do you think about? What thoughts do you have about? Because we're all mired in our lives, family, doing our job, leading our lives, but there's eventually going to be that word that you're going to have to come up against. What do you think about?
So, Joe, that is the question that sparked a bit of a revolution for me in my life. I remember uh, uh, a handful of years ago, I was sitting on my back porch looking at nature, the woods around me. And I started to ask that question, well, retirement's not that far away. What do I want to be doing? And I started to design what I wanted that life to be and look like. And, some of it involved, traveling with my husband, visiting the kids and being around family and friends. Being able to, I don't know that I maybe like many my age, I feel like retirement is starting to shift a bit. There's not this like work hard every day and then rest, right?
Yeah.
There's that we're starting to learn as a society what does it look like to actually create these moments of fulfillment throughout the day. It's not a waiting until you retire moment. So as I was thinking about these, things I wanted to do in retirement and the impact I wanted to make and others I wanted to serve, and I just had this flash of why wait? Why do I have to wait for another 10 to 12 years to kind of get to this space? How
Mhm.
can I create that now? And I think that's really the question. That's why I love that you asked it. But that's
Yeah.
really the question that sparked a bit of a shift in my, not even a bit, like a huge shift in my life, and started, I didn't have anyone to guide me through it per se. So it took me a lot longer than than maybe, well, I won't say shoulds, but it took a while, right, to kind of
Yeah.
figure it out along the way.
So let's say you have a dream tonight. You run into the 18-year-old version of you and you have a big book in your hands and it's your life so far and you hand it over and say, "This is what's happened so far." Would that young version of you believe it?
I think parts of it, right? When I think about maybe there's a couple of areas that that come up. Like one, the family side. I don't know that I ever really felt this like strong desire to be a mom. I had a friend who was like, I want to be a wife and a mother, and I was like, I want to be a businesswoman, right? Uh, so I think that probably my 18-year-old self would have been surprised at the family life that is fulfilled me so much, um, and I was such a planner and a rule follower. I had an adventurous streak in me, so I liked to do some fun things. But I was a rule follower through and through, Joe. Like it was, yeah. I tell stories to my husband. He was very much not a rule follower, so our childhood stories were very different. Um, but I think the 18-year-old in me would be like, "Good job, like you
Yeah.
did it." You know,
Yeah.
I yeah.
So would you give any advice?
Oh, heck yeah. I mean, the first thing is it's so easy to say now, right? But the fretting and the worrying and the wondering about what might be, I would say the times I have paused, sat for me, it's nature. That's where I get kind of fueled up. And um, the advice would really be like, stop listening to everyone else. Like, you know what works and what doesn't work for you. There's a spark and there's drives and there's ideas. Lean on others for support, but you don't need that external validation. You don't need other people to tell you it's okay. Like, you can go do the big, bold, brave things. And and the bold moves don't have to be the big things. Like sometimes usually those bold moments of leadership, right, all happen in those small micro moments.
Yep.
I took a sabbatical when I was in my mid 30s, and I went to New Zealand, dragged my sister along with me, and we I tell the story, but and it feels like a big deal to some people that I talk to, but the reality is that the bold step that I took, the leadership moments, happened well before I ever went on that sabbatical. It was one, believing that something was possible. It was
Yep.
two, being brave enough to walk into my CEO's office at 5:30 and be like, "So, what do you think?" Right? Like those small moments of bravery. And I think, especially when we're younger,
Yep.
we feel like it has to be the big things and we need that external validation, and that is the farthest from the truth.
That's wisdom. You're totally right. I totally get it. Yeah, there's those moments when the cameras are not on where the truth comes to life. So, aside from your family, everything that you've done professionally in your life, what are you ultimately the proudest of?
I think my years at my last company, where we started at 15 people, we grew up to 125, 150 at one point, and it was a caring kind of culture first company to begin with, but to be able to shape over the years the performance systems, the culture, the behaviors, the kind of the impact the real lives of people in that organization. The work that we did to get to that was just Herculean, and it was kind of the small, quiet stuff that happens in the background that a lot of people don't see, but had a huge, huge impact. And I think that the pieces of that I'm most proud of are when it was really unclear, like what the heck we were going to do or how we were going to solve it, and it felt a little scary. Um, because it was unknown, and you know designing something that didn't exist and intentionally like leaning on what was best practices, but also leaning on what do we know to be true and how can we hear the voices in the organization to create something that is going to be sustainable and really mean something in the long run.
So, Nicole, at the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you: family, friends, clients, everyone you work with, everyone that knows you, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I just love your questions, Joe.
Thank you. Thank you.
What I hope is that I first and foremost, I'm uh, caring and give back. Um, I'm curious. Uh, I have always been the person to look at the different perspectives or to find the quiet person in the room or in the pool when I was a camp counselor. It goes back to when I was a young age to be able to draw out those quiet voices um, and be able to use that to make the world a better place, hopefully.
So if anyone is ready to reach out, they have questions, they want to hire you, any of the good business, where do they go?
Yeah, best place to follow along is on my LinkedIn profile, Nicole Anderson on LinkedIn, or on our website, thekalergroup.com.
Okay, I will put links in the show notes. Nicole, thank you. What a great story. Thank you so much for taking a minute out, and best of luck. Have a wonderful, I know we're a little past that time, but have a great new year.
Great. Thank you so much, Joe. Really appreciate it.
You bet.
Take
Thank
care.
you.